Welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for joining us. It is February 59th today, Bridgette. I think that's about accurate.
Yeah, I'd say it's something like that. I don't know. Look, I like winter, generally speaking, but even I'm wearing out on this deal, especially as you talk about the forecast for the rest of the week until Easter. I'll let you talk about it today.
Yeah,
Yesterday, I just totally cut you off.
no, I'm okay with not talking about it. This week has just been, I don't know, this forecast is putting me down.
We're going to be okay though, right? Because this is it. After
Yeah,
Easter, everything's going to get better, right? That's what I'm going
of
with.
course it
Everybody's going
will.
to feel
When's
good.
Easter?
Okay, April 9th.
Oh, yeah, shortly after Easter, everything will be great.
Everything's better. Okay, just go with that. I
It's
always
always
said
sunny
Easter
in
was like the
Philadelphia.
cutoff. Right, right.
Well,
So,
yeah,
okay,
it generally is. Just
what
this is a unique
what do you
year.
what do you got? I mean, you might as well just tell me now. I've got my iced tea in hand to make me feel better about it. So, what do you got?
Yeah, I got my iced tea in hand too. Uh, about Easter or about what we're expecting throughout this week, Bridget? I can do both if you want.
Well, let's do both. But remember, I'm supposed to be on the road tomorrow. So, what do I need to prepare for?
You might want to pack a sail.
Okay, that could improve my mileage per gallon. Yes,
Where are you heading to tomorrow?
I am
Or where are you
targeted to
planning
get
on
out
going to?
Pekin, North Dakota, which is out by Mackville, Talna, to the
Pekin.
southeast of Devil's Lake. Pekin, thank you,
Oh,
Pekin.
it's at southeast of Devil's Lake. You know, outside
Yeah,
of wind, I think that's the only thing you're going to need to worry about tomorrow is the wind and how much snow it's going to pick up or drift around. And there's a few things that come into play when it comes to figuring out how much snow we're going to have to blow around and in return how bad the conditions are going to be. The worst conditions will definitely be south of I-94. As you go north, you'll probably run into better conditions or at least driving conditions, but we're still going to be running into a similar wind, which will be picking up into the afternoon tomorrow, around 20 to 40 miles an hour. It'll be strongest 2 hours south, but we're all going to see gusts up to 40 by the end of the afternoon or mid to late afternoon. So when it comes to the blowing snow, it comes down to how much of a crust do we have on the snow. You know, the sun, we haven't been necessarily warm enough to directly melt the snowpack, but the sun's intensity is stronger where it does start to form a layer of ice over that. Also, we're going to see a little bit of a wintry mix or a little bit of freezing drizzle around the area as we head throughout this evening into tonight, at least pockets of it. How much ice does that build on top of the snowpack? And then it comes into the wind. How long will it take the wind to erode that crust of snow away, or will it even be strong enough to do so based on how much crust is on the snow? And it's really kind of hard to gauge that because unless you're out there walking around, you can't really determine how thick that crust on the snow is. So it's one of those things that just kind of comes down to we start to realize how bad it's going to be once we start seeing conditions worsen. Then if we see those
sure.
conditions get worse through the morning, then you can expect them to get more worse, worser, more worse into the afternoon.
And there's no way around it. This is the spring that we've got. This is what Mother Nature is handing us. And you and Dean do a fabulous job of forecasting as far ahead. We knew that there was going to be a disturbance, where it's going to be, how much snow we're going to get, how much wintry mix we're going to get. Those are the things that get fine tuned. And
I'm
at least we knew that something was coming.
Yeah, we definitely did. I'm gonna share something really quick here on for those watching on Facebook or YouTube Live. Just give me a second. I'm pulling this up here. This is our LRC calendar outlook that I posted. And we've seen
Yep.
our last two possible storm systems, which have mostly gone south, but we got the 30th and the 31st. That's today and tomorrow. And again, the bulk of this storm is going just to our south by about 40 miles, maybe 30 miles. but we're getting in on the wind, and it's going to rip up a lot of, or I shouldn't say it's going to rip up. It's going to cause areas of blowing and drifting snow. Just, is it going to be enough to warrant a blizzard warning? I'm not entirely sure, and I don't think it will, but it will be possible, and I'll touch a little bit more into detail on that in just a second. But as we turn the page into April, I mean, these were put back months ago, Bridgette. And the 3rd, 4th,
Yes,
and
they
5th, we
were.
got another storm system coming in on the 4th and the 5th. And this one looks like it might be bigger than this one, and it has a better chance of hitting us in the FM metro. And unfortunately, we're looking at another disturbance as indicated by our long-range computer models that there might be another disturbance. I don't think it'll be as big as this 4th or 5th storm, but it's something to keep an eye on, and they're lining up with that calendar outlook. So if you want to go ahead, read the article. It explains how I do it. It also gives you month by month what I'm expecting. Go to WDAYradionow.com, click on the weather tab or the hot links tab, and there you'll find it in a big red bar. It says LRC calendar outlook.
Just to recap, for those who weren't able to see that on the live stream, we are looking at that disturbance slash storm today, tomorrow. Then again, early on into next week, we were looking at about the 4th and 5th, and then 4th, 5th, and 6th. And then additionally, we were looking at right over Easter, the 9th to the 10th. There could be something there, but maybe lesser magnitude. So if you're planning trips to grandma's house, pack an overnight bag, put in some extra ham in the oven in case you got guests that stay a little bit longer than expected, right? At the way
Hey,
things are
how
going,
was
just
that
plan
big
ahead.
ham you got? That big
Well, I'm
ham you
having
got,
it
how
for
was it?
Easter. It's
Oh,
still
you
in the
haven't eaten
freezer
it
because I
yet.
need it for Easter. Not yet,
Okay,
but
how
it was
big
a
is it?
big ham. I should go weigh that thing on break. If just by picking it up and like putting it under my arm, I'm pretty sure it was probably about a 13 or 14 pound ham.
Oh my goodness, that's a piece of ham.
Hey, did you know that March is pork is like National Pork Month, and we actually even had National Hog Day back in March. So I have some fun facts about hogs, and I think you're gonna like this. The world
All right, let's
record
hear them.
size hog. Okay, this is my favorite one. The world record size hog. His name was Big Bill. He weighed 2,552 pounds. Think of the size of the pork chops on that guy.
Man, can you imagine the ham on that thing?
Well, okay, did you know
Wow.
that pigs can't sweat? They don't have sweat glands.
Really? I didn't
Right.
know that.
So
Well, actually,
since
that's why they roll
we
around in
have
the
a vet
mud.
today. Sure, we have a vet as a guest today. So you could this is something we can ask Dr. Emily Fox when she joins us. They have poor eyesight and they have somewhere between 34 to 44 teeth. That's a lot of teeth in a pig's mouth,
Hmm,
just so you know.
yeah,
But
that
the
is.
biggest contribution pigs have, besides tasty bacon, is they bring us 20 different life-saving and life-supporting drugs and pharmaceuticals. Everything from heart valves to the fact that their brain can help us with our hypothalamus. Their ovaries provide estrogen, progesterone. Their skin can help us with burn dressings. And their thyroid gland can bring thyroxin, which for those of us who have trouble with our own thyroids, pigs can help. So just little fun facts to know.
Wow. I had no idea. That's super interesting. I knew that we could get like the heart valves and they had done like some testing of organ transplants from pigs, but I didn't know about all the other things too.
Yeah, we actually, when you think about insulin and so forth, we do a lot of work
Hmm.
with pigs in order to be able to help our own overall health. So it's pretty impressive what we can do. Even their blood work, uh, blood fibrins, fetal pig plasma, there's a lot of things that are researched and go on. And here in the
Wow.
US, we produce only 11% of the world's pork. So when you think about that, we produce a lot of pork in the US. It's only 11%
Hmm.
of the entire globe's pork.
Well, I'd heard that pork is the most widely abundant or the most consumed meat on the planet. Isn't that correct too?
I believe that is correct. And, because it's a cloven hoof animal, one of the reasons that we very closely watch our biosecurity with pork products, with hog production, is because cloven hoofed animals like our pigs and our cows can be affected by hoof and mouth disease or foot and mouth disease, which we're trying very, very hard to keep from reaching the shores of the US. In fact, right now there is a call for um, a ban on exports coming in from Paraguay because they have had
Hmm.
outbreaks of hoof and mouth disease, and we don't want that getting here onto our shores.
No, we definitely do not. And we've touched on that topic a few times, and I'm sure we'll probably touch on it again in the future. And maybe we'll ask Ashley if what her thoughts are on all of that. But Bridgette, before we head into our, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say Dr. Emily Fox, but she's with the Ashley Vet Clinic, so you were spot on.
That's what it was.
About her.
I was close. I was close.
Right there.
We're running on 3 hours of sleep. It's been a day and a half, I'll tell you that. But I'm going to run down the forecast really quick because I know I was kind of talking around in circles at the beginning of the show, kind of explaining the uncertainty of blowing snow. So what we're dealing with today, generally partly sunny skies, temps peak near 30 today, wind out of the south switching to the east around 10 to 20. Could see a few flurries, could see a couple pockets of a wintry mix developing towards the later half of this afternoon. Winter weather advisory does go in effect for the Southern Valley over into Lakes Country at 6 o'clock. That will extend until 7 a.m. Friday morning. Throughout this later evening and tonight, again, a few pockets of a wintry mix mixed in with some light snow developing and pushing into the area across the eastern half of our state. That's up and down the Red River Valley. I'm including everybody in this. Most of us are going to be in trace amounts to an inch. A few of us might pick up 2 or 3 around the area, depending on banding. And again, that's just something we don't know exactly where it will set up, just somewhere within the central, northern, and southern valleys where that looks more favorable. It could extend up to the Devil's Lake Basin as well. That exits our area by tomorrow morning. Winds accelerate after dark tonight. They'll start to pick up 15 to 30 through the overnight hours, and then they're 20 to 40 throughout the afternoon of Friday, which again will likely kick up some blowing and drifting snow. We'll have high temperatures tomorrow right around 31, 32 degrees, and we'll watch for more snow to pull into the area as a winter storm watch goes into effect for the northeastern portion of South Dakota and into portions of western Minnesota, I believe. Most of this is going to be contained south of the I-94 corridor, at least on the North Dakota side. And I think the FM Metro is going to escape just about all of it, but amounts upwards of 5 to 9 plus inches of snow will be possible from northeastern South Dakota. So that's Sisseton, the far southern valley in the southeastern corner of North Dakota, and then into Lakes Country. So I'll run down the forecast again towards the end of the show, but we're going to get our guest ready. And when we come back, we'll be speaking with Dr. Fox of Ashley's Vet Clinic. And if you would like to join in on our conversations, ask any questions, feel free to reach us on the Red Wing Shoe Studio line, 701-293-9000. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
MyPillow just launched the new MyPillow 2.0, a brand new temperature regulating technology, keeps you comfortable throughout the night.
New fabric dissipates heat and humidity to create a cooling sensation, maintain a cooler surface temperature, so if you get hot like me when you sleep, enjoy a great night's cool sleep.
Core body temperature plays a big role in how well you sleep, developed to provide a cool surface and engineered for comfort. Because it's a fiber, not a finish, it will last the life of the fabric.
Knife edge seam, no gusset, available in 4 loft levels, machine washable, dryable, made in the USA, 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee.
To order, go to MyPillow.com and don't forget to use the promo code WDAY.
Or call us at 1-800-875-0644. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener square, enter promo code WDAY, and get your MyPillow 2.0.
Hi, this is Kevin Pfeiffer with Pfeiffer's Auction Company. Pfeiffer's upcoming March auctions include 1,530 acres of highly productive cropland in Clay, Norman, and Becker counties. In Minnesota, 1,500 acres of Red River Valley cropland in Cass and Richland counties. Over 2,000 acres of cropland and pastureland in Bottineau, McHenry, and Williams County. 320 acres of cropland and hunting land in Billings County near Belfield, North Dakota. View these auctions and many more land and equipment auctions at Pfeiffer's.com.
Nancy Kelly Realty is here for you. We would love to show you around. Looking for the simplicity of country living? Then welcome home to Colfax Meadows in Colfax, North Dakota. An easy 25-minute drive from Fargo or Wahpeton. We have half and 1 acre lots starting at $22,500 with a 2-year tax exemption on new homes and low specials. Build your dream home, raise a family, or retire in the country. Colfax Meadows has a place for you. Find us at nancykellyrealty.com.
You've heard of the saying, out with the old and in with the new. Hi, Teresa here from the Fargo Red Wing Shoe Store. Have you been hanging on to those tired old Red Wing boots that no longer give you the comfort and support that you need or deserve? Why wait? Stop in and see our certified fit specialist and get you a brand new pair of boots. Believe it or not, feet change over time. So let us use the newest technology to help you find the best fitting boots. 3003 Main Avenue in Fargo, Red Wing Shoes for ultimate durability.
The Dell Technologies semi-annual sale starts now with limited quantity deals on select performance PCs powered by 12th Gen Intel Core processors. Save on select Vostro laptops with built-in security features and select Latitude laptops with enhanced privacy, collaboration, and connectivity. Save on select essential accessories plus free shipping and special financing with Dell Business Credit. Call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL.
Heart failure, carpal tunnel syndrome, shortness of breath, stomach issues, lower back pain. How does it all add up? If you have heart failure and any of those seemingly unrelated symptoms sound familiar, it's time to talk with your cardiologist and get the full picture. They may add up to transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy. ATTR-CM is a rare and underdiagnosed disease. Recognize the signs and discuss them with your doctor soon. Learn more at connectwithyourheart.com. That's connectwithyourheart.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean. Of course I use Mr. Clean Magic Eraser to clean tough messes off my stovetop and bathtub. But then I discovered I can also use it to easily clean my patio furniture and even my shoes. I'm hooked.
And when wipes won't cut it, I use Magic Eraser Sheets. They're thin and flexible erasers, perfect for everyday messes, like gunk on my counters and sinks. They really are magical.
The reviews are in. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and Sheets make cleaning look easy.
And welcome to WDAY Weather and Ag in Focus. I'm Bridgette Readel, Ag Director, along with Meteorologist Justin Storm. And we are very excited to have with us today our guest, Dr. Emily Fox. She is with the Ashley Veterinary Clinic in Ashley, North Dakota. And Emily is a large animal vet, and she has got a lot of calving experience. So, Emily, we have a pile of questions for you today. Because we're in the midst of calving season. How's that been going for you and all the docs at your clinic?
Well, actually, a couple minutes ago, several people ran into this office, which I share with several other people, because they're actually on their way to a calving. So it's definitely already heating up this year, and the weather has not been helpful. So thanks for reminding us of this wonderful weather. I apologize for my voice. I have a touch of bronchitis. It may have been brought on by being out all night a few nights ago, so apologies. I don't usually sound like this.
I think you're doing great. And that really begs a question that we've already had come into us. How far of a radius do you travel as a large animal vet? How often do you get after hours calls, whether to a farm or to a clinic? Give us a little perspective on that, if you would.
So we really try to have people bring things in as much as we can. It's really hard. I do travel quite a radius when I have to. But if animals are ambulatory, meaning that they can still walk and it's not a danger to move them, which we can discuss in a minute why it might be in certain situations, I try to have them come in if I can, if they're from really far away, only because we have a pretty broad client base. We have clients that are 70, 80 miles away. And if you go, and that's in either direction. So I have had nights where I've driven from one end of the practice radius to the other. And unfortunately, early in my career, I did have a situation where an animal didn't make it, and I think it was largely because I was too far away. So that's something that is hard sometimes to deal with, and certainly something we think about. But about 70, 80 miles, there are times when I just go. Actually, on the 18th, I think it was, I don't know if anybody remembers that storm. It was a pretty bad one, and I didn't think I'd be able to get... I didn't think I'd be able to get out of my driveway because I live about 18 miles east of the practice and the snow had been pretty severe. So I actually slept on a cot in this office to make sure I was ready for emergencies. And I did get one about 2 in the morning, and the roads were supposed to be closed. So I don't know if I should admit that on air. I don't know if that's legal, but I did drive up there, and I did a C-section. It was -8 outside, and it wasn't a lot warmer in the barn. I didn't think it was that bad till my instruments started freezing in the pan where I had the sterilization liquid. But we did do the C-section and get a live calf. And then on the way back, the plow driver stopped the plow and got out and said, "Why are you on this road?" But I really do think that it's important to be there no matter what, and we try. I will say, if I fail at something, I don't ever want it to be for lack of effort. So if I can get to you, I sure will try, and I appreciate it if you can get to me if you sure try.
Right. Well, I think you get the exception on the closed roads. I mean, you kind of have an emergency services there.
Probably, but I don't think we have any special legal rights.
Well, you had brought up a couple of good points there. You know, you get calls in the middle of the night, you got to go drive. The weather, you know, you got to get there no matter what the weather is. And you get out there, you had to do a C-section. When you go out for calving, how do you determine if you have to do a C-section? Is there like a threshold, like where if the cow has been in labor for so many hours, you just go in, or are there other signs or complications that would lead to that?
So it's actually a really tough decision. And no matter how many years I've been doing this, it's still sometimes a really tough decision as to whether or not we should do a C-section. I have the good fortune of educating a lot of students, and this is something that we talk about a lot. And really, no, there's no magical, she's been in labor for this many hours. So usually, unless there's some reason not to, generally when I go in, first I go and I assess the situation transvaginally. So the same way that usually the producer, when they call you for a C-section, they've been trying for a while, but sometimes they may not know as much about manipulating the calf as I do. And I also have really long arms and really small hands, so sometimes I get lucky and I can do a few things maybe they couldn't do. Not that I'm super strong, but I rarely find strength as the limiting factor in calving. I find more than anything it's having enough room to manipulate, and that's something that I'm very lucky about. So a lot of the time I will give an epidural, which a lot of producers can't do. Sometimes that stops her from pushing long enough, especially if it's something like a backwards calf where I can get the calf realigned. There's some drugs I can give in certain situations like epinephrine that can be helpful in getting a little more space. Usually when I get that calf into the birth canal, if I get to the point where I feel I'm not going to be able to get around that head and those front legs once everything's in position fully with my hand, I like to swoop around and kind of see, can I get all the way around? If I'm getting to the point where I really feel like I can't, or if I feel something in her pelvis that's abnormal, because sometimes you find the cow has an old injury, or if it's a heifer who's never calved before, sometimes her bone structure doesn't allow the calf to come out. If I find something like that, I might move to a C-section already. A C-section has a much better prognosis for a cow if the calf is alive than if the calf has been dead for a significant amount of time. And the reason for this is because your uterus, believe it or not, is technically an external organ. I know it's in the body, so that's hard to believe, but what I mean by that is the uterus is made to have contact with the outside world, right? This calf is in there and he's kind of like a foreign thing, he or she. And you're made to have non-self foreign things in there. Your peritoneum, which is like the big fancy word for the area around your insides, inside your abdomen, that's a sterile field. That's not meant for contact with outside world bacteria. So when you do a C-section, there's always, even when you can completely pull the uterus out of the incision, there's always a little bit of fluid that can get into that area. And so there are situations in which I've had to, but if the calf has been dead a long time, I try not to do a C-section. I really try to do other things. And there are other things you can do as well. There are other ways to get that calf out if you know it's dead. So when I get there, I like to make the assessment of, do I think this animal is abnormal? Do I think there's any reason that I shouldn't pull this calf out the back? Do I think this calf is abnormal, or do I think this calf is too big? Because the calf can also be malformed, which is not a fun thing to figure out at 2 a.m. And then third, is this calf alive? Right. And those are kind of the criterion that I will use to decide if we should move to a C-section or not. The other thing to consider is whether or not the cow is a good surgical candidate. So for example, is she down? Is she up and standing? If I think I can have a live calf and I think the cow is still a good candidate, I may be a little quicker to jump to a C-section because I know that I have a great possibility of a positive outcome. If the calf is dead and the cow doesn't look that great, it may be in her best interest for me to consider doing something else like a fetotomy, and that's where I would decide to do something like that.
Wow, that's really interesting. It sounds super. very intense, especially if you're doing this at 2 in the morning. We're going to hit bottom of the hour here. I got a few questions when we come back, because you had kind of touched on it a little bit, but what if a new calf isn't responsive? Do you do CPR? If you do, when do you give up? And there are other complications when it comes to calving. And this is one that I've heard of before, and a lot of people might not know what it is, but it's a uterine prolapse. What is that? How serious could it be for an animal? We'll get that answered and let you know when we come back.
The El Zagel Shrine Circus returns to the Fargo Dome with Circus Spectacular this Friday through Sunday. See the death-defying double wheel of destiny, the Shrine Circus elephants, and more. Tickets available at Hornbacher's, Cashwise, Family Fair, PetroServe, Econo Foods Wapaton, the Fargo Dome Box Office, and El Zagel Temple. Sponsored by Town & Country Credit Union, where you can get free tickets for ages 11 and under. Visit FargoShrineCircus.com. Proceeds benefit Shrine Temple operations.
What do eyewear and weather have in common? Join us for the Aspire Optical Eye on the Sky weekly weather forecast to find out. Each Tuesday morning, Dean Wysocki, Justin Storm, and myself, Ashley Freeborn, owner of Aspire Optical, will bring you the 7-day forecast.
You never know where we'll be or how it will be presented, but we promise to bring you the most accurate forecast this side of the Red River.
And learn how you can save big on eyewear from Aspire Optical.
Watch the Aspire Optical Eye on the Sky weekly weather forecast on our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter pages.
Trust us, this is weather and eyewear like you've never seen.
Boston Tri-Co-op is hiring an agronomy manager. Must have sales and agronomy experience, able to sell crop protection, fertilizer, and chemicals. College degree in agronomy or equal experience is preferred. Enjoy competitive salary and benefits including health, long-term disability, dental, life insurance, HAS, paid vacation and retirement match and profit sharing. Email resume to jen.howard@bostoncoop.com or call 218-435-6919 and ask for Brent. Boston Tri-Co-op, hiring an agronomy manager, and it could be you.
We've got Brian in studio from Collins and Cronk Raymond James.
Brian, I was visiting with my girlfriend the other day, and she's just a few years from retirement. She was wondering if she can still retire if there's a recession just around the corner.
This is why planning is so important. When Collins and Cronk does a financial plan for you, we look at several different scenarios. We consider the positives or the good times as well as the bad. What if there is a recession? We do the math so we can answer your questions with confidence. We want to help you make smart decisions like when to retire or what investments to use.
Whether it's a recession or an economic boom, Collins and Cronk can help you make the right decisions. If you have $500,000 or more, call Collins and Cronk in Fargo today. 701-235-0119, 701-235-0119. Securities are offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc. Collins & Cronk is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services.
Are you looking for a summer internship? If so, you are in luck. Mindak Farmers Cooperative, located in Wapaton, North Dakota, is looking for summer interns in electrical and instrumentation with the opportunity to expand into full-time employment. For more information, call 701-671-7777 or apply now online at mdf.coop/careers. That's mdf.coop/careers.
It's hard to believe Sweet Shots has been open for a year and they want to celebrate with you. March 31st through April 4th, enjoy live music, great food, drink, and golf specials. Gather your team for a scramble tournament to win great prizes. Or enjoy a free hour of golf with perishable food donation on Tuesday the 4th from 11 to 5. Live music March 31st through April 4th. So swing those clubs, eat great food, and think spring with a tasty beverage at Sweet Shots for the anniversary celebration. Details at sweetshots.com or see their Facebook page.
And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for rejoining us. It's 1:34. We're speaking with Dr. Emily Fox of Ashley Vet Clinic. And if you'd like to join in on our conversations, ask a question, feel free to do so. Call us on our Red Wing Shoes studio line, 701-293-9000. Again, that phone number, 701-293-9000. Now, Emily, before we went to break, we had touched on a couple of topics and some questions that we had. And the first one I was going to start with you, was the whole part about CPR on calves. Do you do CPR if a calf isn't responsive after birth?
I have certainly tried CPR in the sense that we would think of, pushing to the beat of staying alive. I don't always have great luck with that. There's usually a few other things that are going on more than cardiac distress. Most of these animals come out in respiratory distress, meaning it's not so much the heart issue, it's more that they can't breathe because they get stuck in the birth canal for too long, they've had trouble breathing. And there's a few ways to combat that. So for one thing, trying to get the mucus out of their nose, a lot of farmers will stick a piece of straw up there and tickle them. That's a great idea. There's also an acupuncture point in the center of the nose, kind of like piercing the nose with a bull ring. And sometimes I'll take a fine gauge needle, like a 22 or 25 gauge needle, and actually put it through there. That can help. Additionally, because I'm a veterinarian and I can usually hit a vein, I will try to IV a lot of these animals a solution of sterile bicarb. So bicarb being like baking soda. When you are deprived of oxygen, your blood can become very acidotic. You can get what they call a respiratory acidosis. And the fancy version of that is your blood's acidic. It's more acidic than it should be. And so by putting in a basic solution like the sterile sodium bicarb, we can actually increase that pH so they're no longer acidotic, and we can do it relatively quickly. And I have a lot of success with that. Sometimes too, if I think their airways are really swollen, this may be an indication for steroids. These are kind of things to go over with your vet. I certainly don't want to give anybody who's listening strict advice, because they should definitely talk about that with their vet. But those are things that you could have in place as protocols for calves that come out a little swollen or having trouble breathing. Some people will sling them upside down. The general research that's been done doesn't suggest that that's all that useful, although if it works for you, keep doing it. Actually, the best position to put a calf in to take the pressure off the lungs, if you have a calf that's breathing hard or having trouble breathing, is actually with the front feet facing forward, directly on its sternum, so on its belly, and then with both back feet kind of next to it sideways, so it stays up like a ship, upright, because actually that puts the least gravity pressure on those lungs and allows them to work as quickly as possible. The most important thing with a calf like that, though, is also as soon as you can to get colostrum into them. That's incredibly important as well, and something to think about. I think that's often neglected and really shouldn't be.
I see. And the other thing, it's not always the calf that you have to worry about coming out. I mean, mama can have issues as well, and there's a lot of complications. And tell me, what is a uterine prolapse? Because a lot of our audience probably has never heard of that. Those who have probably had to experience this. What is it, and how serious can it be to the mom?
A uterine prolapse is a life-threatening emergency. And so earlier when I said I try to have people haul things in, I will not ask my clients to haul a uterine prolapse. There are vets who maybe do, and I don't mean anything by that, but personally, I think that they are just too fragile to haul. So we usually don't ask people to haul them unless there's something drastic going on. And that's because when a cow has a uterine prolapse, there are 4 types of prolapses. They can have a rectal prolapse, a vaginal prolapse, a cervical prolapse, or a uterine prolapse. And I can get into the other ones later if anyone has interest. But the uterine is the only one that's a true emergency. So that happens after they calf. And what happens is, for whatever reason, it could be because you pulled a really big calf. It could be because she just didn't know not to stop pushing because she's a heifer and this is the first time. Could also be that she's low in calcium, and a couple other reasons. That cow will keep pushing and pushing. Even after that calf comes out, she thinks she's got to keep pushing. And she will actually push her whole uterus out inside out. And so we train our staff when they answer the phone to ask what type of prolapse it is, has she calved, and then, if people are really confused, the uterine ones tend to hang down behind them. They can be pretty long. And I always ask, does it look like a pepperoni pizza, which is a really weird question, but they have the attachments that they have for the placenta, the placentomes, and you can see them. And so that's very unique because you won't see that with any other type of prolapse. So if you see a bunch of buttons on there, that's uterine prolapse. You should probably call your vet.
Oh, wow.
And those can be really difficult to replace. Sometimes they'll also push their intestines into that inside-out sock. So they can be really difficult to replace. Sometimes they're bigger than me. And I've had a couple really gnarly ones this year already. It's a very bloody event, to be honest, not to be too graphic on the radio.
Well, I could imagine so.
The other thing to consider that's really scary is there's a lot of really big vessels in that uterus, because that uterus has been blood supplying this whole calf for all of gestation.
Yeah. Right.
So there's these huge vessels that are exposed. If that cow gets upset and ruptures one of those vessels, she can die really quickly. I have a couple stories about that you probably don't want to hear, but they can die really, really quickly. And so it is important to get those replaced. It's important not to get her too worked up. I did actually have a cow a couple years ago that kicked hers because she was upset. and actually kicked the whole thing off of her body. And there was nothing really anyone could do for her. So it's definitely a serious emergency. It's a good reason to have a good pre-existing relationship with your vet, even if you think that you can pull any calf, and good for you. But uterine prolapses, most people can't replace by themselves. They do take a lot of skill. They also need to have an epidural, or you will not get that prolapse back in because she won't stop pushing. And if you can't place an epidural yourself, it's probably good to have a good relationship with a veterinarian of some sort.
So what do you do to fix this? I mean, just simply, do you just push it back in, or what's that look like?
It's a tricky business. So first you want to place an epidural so that she doesn't keep pushing it. In addition to that, you want to try to get her to take it back. But at the same time, you don't want to risk poking a hole in it, because as soon as you do, you've taken that external organ we talked about earlier, and now it's pushing material into her abdomen, which could kill her.
Well, right.
later.
I'd imagine it's
So you don't
fragile
want to do
too.
that. Incredibly, and depending on how long it's been out, because sometimes people call you and they say, oh my God, it just happened. I just pulled the calf. I saw it. Sometimes they go to bed, the calf's out, everything's fine, and then they call you the next morning and they say, she was fine when I went to bed, and 2 hours later she pushed it out, and now it's been out for 6 hours, and it's full of edema, and it's like the size of half the size of my body. So it's somewhere where sometimes I think people think maybe being small isn't great, but I will tell you, I'm very capable. Dr. Megan, who works with me, who's a couple inches shorter than me, gets them done no problem. It's more a matter of skill than might, especially because if you just try to slam it in there too fast, you will rupture it. So it's a matter of a little bit of convincing her to take it back. You've got that epidural, and you just, for me, I will actually put it on my arm. I'll put my arm in the uterine horn because I'm pretty little, and then I will slowly start rolling it back into her. And it's kind of like an inside out sock, and you have to slowly roll it back into her. I find kind of working in opposition of when she pushes. I kind of think about that as I do them. But there's still some that I can't get replaced. There are other options for that. So if it starts to rupture, or if you really don't think it's replaceable because it's really necrotic, so if it's really purple in color and it looks like it's maybe not good for her to have it back, there are options. They can be amputated surgically, and that's something I can do as well. The tricky thing is, if there's already intestines in it, it makes surgical amputation a lot harder, and that can be really tricky, but amputation is always a reasonable option. And there are areas where people don't have access to veterinarians, and they actually learn to do epidurals and amputations themselves, and I have heard of people doing that successfully on their own as well. It's not necessarily something I would try to push our client base to do, but I know there are parts of this world that are remote enough not to have a veterinarian, and I respect that they try to do right by their animals if they can.
So, like, for those who are listening, and if you didn't hear when we first started, this is Dr. Emily Fox. She's a large animal vet with the Ashley Veterinarian Clinic in Ashley, North Dakota. And by the way, I am thrilled that you are on and sharing all of these things, although I'm pretty sure our two guys in the control room at the studio are maybe a little bit green right now, because this is somewhat new. So that's okay, because this is real world. This is truly what actually happens when this is going on, right? And you're not in a sterile environment. You're like an ER doc, but you're in a barn with hay and manure, and this isn't so easy. So all I can say is, wow. We have way more questions, so we're going to be coming up on a break here shortly. But before we get to that, something else to ask: how often do you come across twins? And then there's the occasional oddity, such as a double-headed calf. Do you see those at all on a regular basis in your practice?
So I haven't pulled any twins this year, but they actually just pulled a set of twins in the other room about 2 hours ago. So it definitely does happen. I have heard from other veterinarians that they're seeing a lot of twins this year. I didn't necessarily find that to be true when I was doing some ultrasound earlier this year. We do some fetal age and sex ultrasound for some of our clients fairly early in gestation, and at that point you can still find the twins. And I didn't feel like I saw more than normal, but certainly twins do happen. I have never personally pulled a set of triplets, but I know plenty of people who have. And twins definitely happen. Wow. It's important to recognize what you're dealing with. I always say, when you go in and you're trying to do a calving, first of all, you need to figure out if you've got the front or the back of the calf. So if it's a front leg, all the joints will bend in the same direction, because the wrist of the calf and its knee should bend the same way, right? With the back part of the calf, the hock actually bends opposite to the fetlock joint. And so if you're really confused, is he forwards or backwards, and you can't find a tail or a head and you don't know up from down, try to see the first two joints, which way do they bend? If they're in opposition, you're backwards. If they're the same way, you're forwards. And the reason I bring that up is because the next thing I like to do is I like to make sure that both legs that I'm grabbing are both attached to the same calf. I see that with twins. Sometimes people will say, yeah, I got two legs and he's not coming. Well, yeah, you've got one leg from one twin and one leg from the other. So it's important to feel, see if you can feel a chest. So you're not trying to pull both at the same time, because that isn't going to work.
No.
As to deformed calves, I have pulled several deformed calves. I've seen a number of hydrocephalus, which is where there's water on the brain and the brain is too large. I did at one point see an 8-legged calf that the cow had delivered herself after the calving. It had extra legs on its back. Actually saved that one for the school class that was coming the next week. They still say it was pretty cool.
I bet.
I have definitely seen those. I've also had the inside out calves, the schistosomus reflexus. They're not uncommon either. So that's when someone calls and they say, you know, I thought my cow was calving, but there's intestines coming out. And then you say, are they little intestines? Well, sometimes the calf is actually born with its intestines on the outside. And that's a very unfortunate thing, but it can happen. So do we see deformed calves? Yes. Do we see tons of them? No. I'd like to say we're pretty lucky that we don't see tons. We don't live somewhere where they have some of these plants that can cause deformities. In other countries, there are actually some plants that are teratogenic, meaning they affect fetal development. And in those areas, you can actually see deformed calves just due to exposure to plants, which is something we're very lucky not to have here. Maybe it's because our weather is so good.
That was a nice try at sarcasm.
Love the beach day weather.
All right, folks. We are with Dr. Emily Fox. She is with the Ashley Veterinarian Clinic. Dr. Fox, we need to go listen to the American Ag Network for the markets, but can you hang around for just a couple more questions after that? Does that work for you?
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be fine.
Wonderful. Okay, because the one we're going to come back to with you is, we want to know, you've talked about some pretty crazy moments in your career. I want to know what's been like the favorite memory, or what really was that wild scenario. And we're going to do that after we touch base with our markets. So we'll be right back after the American Ag Network.
Oh, can you imagine a stress-free Sunday with family, friends, fun, and food? You can have it when you make Barron's your new Sunday brunch headquarters. Experience a brunch like nowhere else. Your kids will love the customizable waffle bar, fresh scrambled eggs, thick cut bacon, and much more. Plus, while Mama sips on a mimosa, you can wear out the kids in the arcade at Kingpin's.
For a stress-free Sunday, mention My Brunch Headquarters and receive 20% off brunch at Barron's. Make your Sunday stress-free, filled with great food, no cleanup, and most importantly, where family, friends, fun, and food come together for brunch at Barron's. Go to brunchatbarons.com. Again, brunch at BARONS.com. And don't forget to mention My Brunch Headquarters for 20% off and experience your stress-free Sunday at brunchatbarons.com.
Brunch at Barron's, located inside Kingpin's off I-29 and 52nd Avenue South in Fargo.
A little slice of the country, still close enough to the city. A quick 30-minute drive north of Fargo will have you living the life on a beautiful 10 acres. This property checks all the boxes. Rows of gorgeous mature trees. Check. 3 bedrooms, 2 bath. Check. Large metal outbuilding and hay barn. Check. Did someone say chickens? Check. Check. Schedule your showing today at NancyKellyRealty.com or dial 701-306-0486.
Join us on Tuesday at 10:06 a.m. when we bring you the Luther Family Ford Nonprofit of the Week on the Coffee Club. This is one of the most special things we do to honor and showcase our local nonprofits, because they are the lifeblood of keeping our communities safe, fed, housed, educated, and more. Join us at 10:06 a.m. every Tuesday when we bring you another Luther Family Ford Nonprofit of the Week on WDAY's The Coffee Club.
Rick Driscoll with American Ag Network here for this market update. We're chatting with Arlen Suderman of Stone X. Arlen, as I look at the numbers today, it seems to be a pretty quiet day in the grain trade. Is that just maybe some position squaring ahead of tomorrow's reports coming out?
Yeah, I really think so. It's kind of like watching paint dry, watching these markets today. We've had quite a rally in the grain and oilseeds market of late. A lot of that was short covering, unwinding previously sold positions. That's kind of run its course for now. With the big reports coming out tomorrow, known for their surprises, trade's really stepping back. And unfortunately, from a producer standpoint, that means prices are drifting lower. We started out the day pretty good shape. Higher on the day, but that buying simply dried up, and that's allowed the path of least resistance to be lower as we head into tomorrow's reports.
Well, and as I look at the livestock numbers, I see mostly green. What are you making of those markets today?
Well, the feeder cattle market certainly likes the cheaper feed prices that we're seeing as we get closer to midday and supportive. We started off hogs under pressure. We just continue to see a leakage of the cash market as well as in the product market. But we're consolidating in here, and we've seen times we've been into green, kind of trading both sides, and fairly quiet day overall for the hog complex. Look at cattle, we're generally firm, and expectations continue to rise that we're going to see cash trade unfold this week here as we approach the end of the week, maybe $2 plus higher. We're pushing to new highs for the board now. That's hitting some buy stops on the board. And generally, the feeders are really bulling up, if I can use the term, thinking that the packers are going to have to pay up to get the cattle they need.
Those have been comments by Arlen Suderman of Stone X for the American Ag Network. I'm Richard Ristvet.
Welcome to WDAY Weather and Ag in Focus. I'm Bridgette Readel, Ag Director, along with Meteorologist Justin Storm, and we are thoroughly enjoying our conversation with Dr. Emily Fox. She is our guest from the Ashley Veterinary Clinic in Ashley. And when we went to break, Emily, we were asking you, what would you say has been kind of your favorite moment or your craziest moment as a full-time large animal vet?
Well, I've had a lot of them, and most of my favorite moments are spending time with the producers because that's really a big part of why I do what I do. Earlier, you said something about how I'm doing surgery in a barn, and all I could think of is if I'm lucky, because I've had quite a few things that I've done at the end of the rope, in the field, in a hole, in mud. There's nothing worse than trying to put a uterine prolapse in a mud puddle. One time I remember this cow had come to the edge of a dugout and she had prolapsed right next to the dugout. And the whole time I kept talking to her and I said, please don't go any further, because I knew otherwise I was going to be in the water trying to put this prolapse in. I was really grateful she did not go in the water. But I've had a lot of really great moments. Rural practice gives you the opportunity to do something different every day. And I really do all sorts of cool things, which I really enjoy. One of my favorite things that happened a couple years ago, I do a fair amount of hernia surgeries on baby calves. So hernias in people, we talk a lot about scrotal hernias, but in baby calves, a lot of the time we see umbilical hernias. I think they do have them in people as well, but to my understanding, they're a lot less common. And that's where the body wall hasn't fully formed, and usually around the area of the umbilical cord, some intestines or omentum, which is just fat from the abdomen, can leak into there and cause this kind of open pouch, and they have to be corrected surgically. It's usually not a terribly hard surgery. It's something I do fairly regularly. But a few years ago, I had someone who I'd never met before call and say, hey, I talked to somebody else. They said they don't want to tackle this, but this calf has a hernia on its side. And I said, really? Are you sure? And they came in, and sure enough, this calf had a hernia in its body wall, but it wasn't in its umbilical area where it should have been developmentally. It was in between the ribs on the side of the abdomen, like the end of the ribs. And I said to her, I don't know if this is going to really turn out. We don't have mesh here like they would in a human hospital. I don't really know how to fix this. And he said, well, do you want to try? And I said, I always want to try. So I actually did get it replaced. And I took a bunch of nylon suture and I kind of made like a extra bridge between the ribs and kind of made like a fake body wall there. And I found out later that the animal lived, and the gentleman is still our client, so I think he was happy. But that was kind of a crazy thing because it was just something I've never seen. I don't think I've seen it in the literature anywhere. I mean, you can technically have a hernia anywhere, but I wasn't really expecting that to be real. So it was pretty neat, and I was pretty happy that turned out. But honestly, any calving where the calf is alive and the calf comes out live is really rewarding, and it's something that we love. I don't get mad when people call me in the middle of the night because I'm happy we have a live calving. I'm more upset if they wait till 8 o'clock in the morning and they say, "Oh, I didn't want to bother you," and then the calf is dead, because that's just sad for everybody. It's sad for the cow too. It is sad for them too. But we've had a couple of neat things. A couple years ago too, I think that was last year. Usually if one calf is dead, the other calf is dead with twins, and unfortunately twins get tangled up, and a lot of the time they will die before you figure it out and get them out if they're really tangled and the cow doesn't show any signs. And I had this pretty smelly twin to pull out that was dead a long time. And then I went to pull the second calf, and I thought to myself when I went to pull the second calf, am I losing it? God, that felt like he moved. And I was like, there's no way. I mean, I've heard of it, but I didn't really think I was going to. I pulled him out, and he was alive, and he was fine. So his buddy had been decomposing in front of him, but he was still alive, and it was just such a blessing to get a live calf in that situation. And he surprised me so much, and I was just so happy because I thought I was already in this situation where the best thing we could do is save the cow, but there was already no hope for the calves, and then to get a live calf was pretty exciting. So
that is super cool.
Exciting thing.
And we got about a minute or so left here. Dr. Emily Fox, we were talking about this earlier in our show before you jumped on with us, and it was a little fact about hogs and pigs, and why don't they sweat?
I think it has to do with their apocrine glands, but to be honest with you, pigs are not my best subject. I'm not 100% sure why they don't sweat, but I think it might have to do with the glands, if I remember, in their skin. I'm not 100% sure. That's an interesting question.
I see.
So you don't have a lot of hogs in practice, but it's beef and sheep that you primarily focus on.
Beef and sheep primarily, but mostly beef. We do a little bit of goats, a little bit of sheep. Mostly I do beef cows, and then this area we also do all the small animal for the area. And then I do some other stuff too. I do some horses. And then actually I don't usually do birds, but this week I've been doing some birds too.
Really? Wow.
Whatever needs to be done.
Right. And whatever has to get done, you got to get it done. Hey, I got to pass along a joke to you that was sent over from one of our producers, and it's, what do you call a cow that was recently given birth?
A moother?
Decaffeinated.
Oh gosh, I actually put that on our pay stubs last year, and I already forgot about it. I'm known for putting a dad joke on our pay stubs when I do payroll. I should have known that one because they sent it out to the whole office. That's a good one.
That's awesome.
That is
all right, Dr. Emily Fox, this has been absolute joy, very informative. If people want to get more information, maybe they want to get a hold of you. Hey, I want her to be my vet in the area, or if there's any social media that you do or your company does, where can they go to get that information or follow that?
Sure. So Ashley Veterinary Clinic has a Facebook page. That's about all we have now. We just had a producer meeting last night, so that's our ad for the producer meeting on there. And it's something that I'd like to do a little more of, a little bit more engagement. So I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no problem. We love having you on, and would love to get you on again as we head through, maybe once we get out of busy season, maybe have you come back on and we can talk about some more stories.
Good.
I bet.
Good.
Well,
that's good.
Thank you very much. We hope you have a great rest of your day and that everything goes smooth and you don't have too many 3 a.m. calls ahead of you in the near future.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, that's about going to do it for Weather and Ag in Focus today. We thank you for joining us and listening. We'll be back tomorrow, 1 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Remember, if you did miss any of this interview, you can always go back on the website, WDAYradionow.com. Click on the show archives button, or you can also head over to our Facebook or our YouTube channel, Weather and Ag in Focus, where all of our past shows are archived, and as well on YouTube, we do cut up all of our interviews, our shorts, and some of our jokes, and we put them up on there. But have a great day. I'll recap the forecast coming up here with the Jay Thomas Show, which will be starting in about 6 minutes.
970 WDAY AM and 93.1 FM, Fargo-Moorhead.